Welcome in to the New Orleans Saints podcast, hosted by Erin Summers and John DeShazier. You'll hear from players, coaches, broadcasters, and writers who cover the team on a daily basis. The New Orleans Saints podcast starts right now. Here's your hosts, Erin Summers and John DeShazier.
Welcome into the New Orleans Saints podcast. I'm Erin Summers. The Saints are in LA for a matchup with the Rams under the primetime lights, and it's a matchup with high stakes. The Rams and Saints are 2 of 6 teams within one game of the 6th and 7th seeds in the NFC. The Rams currently hold the final NFC playoff spot. The Saints, however, are also in the running to win the NFC South, as they have the same record as the division-leading Bucs, but lost their first head-to-head matchup. Vets Cam Jordan and Tyrann Mathieu spoke about the importance of this game after practice this week.
We got 3 games left. At this point, we still have our destiny in our hands. We don't have to rely on anybody except us to try and get a playoff berth. You know, we went out. There's no chance that we can't go to the playoffs. You know, it's like 100% in. The moment we falter is the moment where we give somebody else our fate. And I've been there before, probably the last 2 seasons. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking to be able to take control of this division and move on from after that.
You know, obviously we been able to kind of win 2 games, and so we're able to get this one. I think it'll be a good feeling for us going forward. I mean, you just want to play your best football, at the right time. And so, it probably was a moment, right, in the middle of the season where we didn't think we would be in a situation, right? And so here we are. We just got to do a good job of really just taking it one game at a time, finishing strong. But tomorrow night, no doubt about it, is a really, really important game for us.
With the short week, the Saints held back-to-back walkthroughs and headed west Wednesday afternoon. The team will come back after the game Thursday night and enjoy some time off for the holidays. Before that, however, the focus is completely on limiting a Rams offense that has been rolling over the past month. Since their Week 10 bye, the Rams are 4-1. Wide receiver Cooper Kupp has stacked back-to-back games with over 100 yards receiving and a touchdown in each. Rookie wide receiver Puka Nacua is 6th in the league in receiving yards, and rookie running back Kyren Williams topped the 1,000-yard mark Sunday, despite missing 4 games earlier this year. Williams is now 3rd in the league in rushing with 1,105 yards. Since Week 11, the Rams lead the NFL with 754 rushing yards. Here's head coach Dennis Allen on what makes their run game so effective.
I think the player and the scheme are both tough to deal with. They give you a lot of eye candy, in terms of what they do formationally, shift, motion, all that kind of stuff. Try to get you, looking at the wrong thing and get yourself out of position. I think their runners run extremely hard, and they've been doing a good job of creating some holes in the running game. So we definitely know that that's, something that they're going to try to do, and they've been really effective with it, particularly in the last month of the season.
The Saints themselves are coming off a game where they only allowed 60 yards on the ground. And for the second straight game, they didn't allow their opponent to score a touchdown. Over the same span, the defense tallied 11 sacks.
I mean, I think we're coming along. Obviously, it's never perfect, when you play football. But these last 2 weeks, I think we've really come along. You see more guys smiling in the locker room, really enjoying, being around, each other. And so, like I said, man, we just got to keep that momentum going and do a good job of, doing what we've done, the last few weeks is, keep teams out of the end zone, try to take the ball away and, just play good team ball.
Hopefully the momentum does carry over, because while Rams quarterback Matthew Stafford has been playing at a high level since their bye, he is 0-4 in 2023 against teams currently ranked top 10 in scoring defense. And yes, the Saints fall into that category. New Orleans is 6th at 19.1 points allowed a game. Offensively, the Saints will get an added boost with wide receiver Chris Olave back on the field, and head coach Dennis Allen also said Wednesday running back Kendre Miller, who participated in practice this week, is also available if needed. Right tackle Ryan Ramczyk, however, will not make the trip as he continues to rehab his knee. The hope is he'll be good to go next week. It's a big game, so let's send it to LA and John DeShazier, who has a special guest to break down the matchup.
Well, welcome to the New Orleans Saints podcast. I am John DeShazier. I am joined by Mike Haas, the radio voice of the New Orleans Saints, WWL Radio, 870 AM. And Mike, we are here in California. Obviously a big game. Two desperate teams, I would say. Both of them 7-7, the Rams and the Saints, both needing a win. What do you see from the Saints coming on Thursday night? Because they put together two wins. One of them, I would say, fairly impressive, the 24-6 win last week. On Sunday, I thought was one of their more complete games, especially for Derek Carr. So what do you see coming from the Saints right now?
If they can kind of replicate how they've been effective offensively, scoring in the red zone, getting into goal and go, and if you can do that. That was their big sticking problem offensively. So they got down there, they would have 10, 12 play drives, get a field goal, sometimes not even that, right? So I just feel like if this offense can keep doing what it's doing, because they're still, they don't have to be perfect, but they're just so much more efficient. And they've kind of had to be, right? And you're right. I mean, you could have looked at both of these teams a few weeks ago and said, they're done. Right?
Yes.
The Rams, if you'd have said a few weeks ago this was going to be a huge game, both teams 7-7, I'd have said, I don't know, right?
Yeah.
But Saints have won back-to-back, playing better. The Rams have won, 3 of the last 4, and really the Baltimore game, was the game they could have had. This team could have been could be winning 5 straight right now. So as we know, it's razor thin. 6-7, 7-7, 8-5. Man, it's about the bounce of the ball.
I guess there's been a little discounting, of the Saints' wins because they've been against Carolina and against the Giants. But this is the NFL, and it's difficult to win week to week in the NFL. Do you feel like they can kind of carry over? Because, again, people think, they've been playing lightweights, and now they're going to step up in class against the Rams.
But I think they actually, to me, if you go back to week 12 in Atlanta, they did not. It wasn't that they played poorly. They had 2, not 1, 2 14-point swings. You can't overcome that. A pick 6 as you're inside the red zone, 14 points. Fumble at the 5, it's just 2 14-point swings. And once you give Detroit 21-0, you make that a game. I didn't, that was a gift. I just feel like they're playing better, and they're stepping up in class. But everybody, it's not who you play, but when you play them. You could have taken the Rams 4 weeks ago, and they were, struggling. But right now, I think the toughest part about the Saints game is, of course, short week, but it's short for them. But the Saints had to travel, but that the Rams feel like they are just clicking, right? I mean, Cooper Kupp, touchdown in his last 3 games. DeMarcus Robinson, touchdown his last 3 games. Like, wait, we both had touchdowns in your last 3 games? Right? They're averaging 33, 34 points a game in their last 4. I think the Saints have scored more than that just twice this year in New England and Indianapolis. But you know what? This is going to be a weird thing to say. But Matthew Stafford and Baker Mayfield, the back-to-back quarterbacks, giveth and they taketh away. And right now they have been hot. And so sometimes, this is when you least expect it. I don't know that the Saints could, if you think about it, could go from the quarterback spectrum any further than they've went.
Yeah.
From Tommy DeVito, undrafted, kind of maybe it's a Tommy Cutlet flash in the pan, to the number 1 pick in 2009, Super Bowl winner in back-to-back weeks, veteran. And they're just playing good, man. When Stafford's throwing touchdowns and not getting picked off and running the ball as well as they are, it's going to be a very, very tough game. And both teams desperately need to win, right? You look at the playoff chances of the loser, irrespective of who it is, it drops significantly.
Yeah.
Not over, but the winner, man, changes their mathematical probability immensely.
Yeah, the Saints are going to be up against it defensively because the Rams are playing well. But the Saints defense has given up 4 field goals in the last 2 games. Seems to have found some footing. And in the last game, the run game, which the run defense has been pretty sketchy for like 8 straight weeks. But they finally put it together against the Giants team with Saquon Barkley. Only gave up 60 yards on 19 carries and really shut down Barkley. But Kyron Williams now, a guy who's run for 950 plus yards and 9 touchdowns, and he's caught 3 touchdowns. This is going to be a challenge for the Saints' run defense. Do they kind of have it back together? Because one game can be a flash in the pan, or one game can be a turn. You hope it's the turn, but it's going to be difficult for them because they have had some shaky moments this year.
Right, especially in the first half, right? Stopping the run in the first half. But what they've been able to do, at least recently, when they're not down, is that you get the other team behind the sticks, right? And you force them into these throwing situations. I don't think the Giants wanted to throw the ball nearly as much as they did. But when you're facing 16 third downs at an average of 10.6 yards on every third down, I mean, the Saints were unbelievable on first and second down last week. And third down, when you're facing 3rd and 11, you should be good. But, yeah, it will be. You got to stop Kyron Williams off the bat. It was a strange game for them, for the Rams against Washington. Williams played great, but he had 2 key fumbles, right? And so, and there were no turnovers for the Saints. I mean, I really do think the turnovers are going to play a key role. Who gets them, who doesn't get them, and then what they do with them. But yeah, it sounds coach cliche-ish, but you're going to have to stop the run. But I don't know. I don't know that the Rams might not just come out and just fling it, right? I mean, that's kind of the way they're playing. They've got more. They have 10. I'm trying to think of the number. Their explosives, passing and running, is impressive. Some of the best in the NFL. So that's one of the things you got to really watch from the Saints standpoint. It's going to be the Rams' explosiveness. They've got 56. I had to double check it. 56 passing explosives, 20 plus, and that's 4th in the NFL. And they've got another 10 rushing explosives plus 20. That's 7th in the NFL. So that's 66 plays for a 7-7 team of 20 plus. So that's where I feel like, maybe the Rams come out and run it, but maybe not. Maybe they just start, flinging the ball down the field, because that's where they've been most impressive.
Yeah, they can fling it around. But the beautiful thing, if you want to say beautiful, for the Saints defense is, especially pass rush, you kind of know where Matthew Stafford's going to be.
Yes.
You know he's going to be in the pocket. He's not going to be scrambling around. He's not going to be buying 3 extra seconds. You know where he's going to be. So hopefully the pass rush will have an opportunity to get there. But speaking of quarterbacks, Derek Carr seems to have found some rhythm with his receivers. How has he looked in the last couple of games? Because he's been, and especially in the red zone, he's been really effective there.
Right. And I think what's happened, at least because if you just look at his quarterback completion percentage over the last 6 games, he's 70 plus. Right. His game against the Giants was his 6th best game of his career, but it wasn't the 5-yard out. Yeah. They were getting good chunk plays across the middle, but which has been open. And I think that's what kind of made the difference to me offensively, that it wasn't these short, route dump-offs, that it was, I mean, the 23-yarder to Juwan Johnson was just a great play, great pass. And when you can do more of that, getting some of those, 10, 15-yard, not huge plays, but you get those across the middle, I really do think he did gain a lot of confidence, and he probably needed that at home more than he needed it here in LA, right? Yeah. And so it's funny that we've kind of defended a guy who's throwing 70% completion rate, but they've just kind of struggled. But yeah, I mean, if get him doing what he's doing, and I mean, you're going to get a Jimmy Graham touchdown, right? I mean,
absolutely. If Jimmy's active, he's scored.
I mean, it's just kind of like it's just like Kupp and just like DeMarcus Robinson. He's had a touchdown in his last 3 games, and so it's just it changes the red zone.
How wild has that been with Jimmy? Because Jimmy Graham comes back, he signs, he says, "Look, I'm here to play in the red zone." That basically was all he said. Look, I'm here to play in the red zone. I'm still 6'7", I'm still 260, I can still jump. And he gets the chance to prove it these last 3 games. I know Saints fans love Jimmy Graham, and Jimmy Graham has given them more reason to love Jimmy Graham.
Yeah, I mean, he just catches first downs and touchdowns. That's basically it. And I think most fans, because it surprised me a little bit, because we had the one game where all the tight ends were down, so he was in, but that was more of a blocking. But I think his his offensive snaps are up around 140, something like that. And I think that would surprise people because he was inactive for 4 games.
Yeah.
I don't think that people think that he's been in 140 offensive plays. I mean, I'm not sure of the exact number, but it was way more than I thought.
Yeah.
Because but now that's snaps. Now you look at targets, that's a different ball game, right? Targets, 7 targets, 6 receptions, 4 touchdowns. It's a pretty good, whenever I talk to him, and you do the same thing, talk to Mickey or Dennis, it's always like, well, we should throw it to him more, right? Like, let's do that. But I think, let's put it this way. I when in the red zone now, where you're always cognizant of where Taysom is. Mm-hmm. But now I'm looking for 80. Where's 80? And then I know if the other team's doing that, that makes Juwan's job easier. That makes, Keith Kirkwood's job easier just because, an A.T. Perry, because if I'm looking for Jimmy, they're looking for Jimmy.
Yeah. He basically kind of drew the coverage that got Kirkwood the touchdown. So Kirkwood probably owes him an assist. Getting Chris Olave back this week, which is helpful because you got Rashid Shaheed and you get Chris Olave. Don't have Michael Thomas, obviously. But having those two seems to be a pretty good duo for the Saints. And having Chris Olave back maybe opens up the offense even a little bit more.
Yeah, I think so. He's done so well. Derek Olave, even last year and this year, he's the guy that quarterbacks find.
Yeah.
How he gets so open sometimes.
He seems to live okay.
Right. I don't like. But I think one of the keys for that to have Olave back is if Shaheed is a little bit more towards 100%, because special teams, and I don't mean field goal kicking and punting, but punt returns and kickoff returns, the Saints are one of the best, right?
Yeah.
That's the Rams' worst. They're in the bottom 3 of punt coverage, kick return, and punt return. So you don't talk about those stats much. Saints have been great on punt coverage, solid on kick coverage, but man, if Shaheed can bust one, that's kind of like I still call it a block punt. I know it's a forced fumble for Nephi, but that changes the game, and a special teams play tomorrow night can be one of those kind of playmakers to all of a sudden flip the field, get you an easy 7, and punt coverage and kick coverage has not been a strength for the Rams. It's been, in fact, it's their Achilles.
Yeah, there's no Ryan Ramczyk for the second consecutive game, but the Saints' offensive line seems to have kind of figured it out. They've been really nice for the last 5-6 games or so. What have you seen there? Because Landon Young steps in right tackle, but the chemistry and cohesion seems to have developed, and it really seems to be at a high for this season. Yeah,
I mean, and I go back to when they moved Pete to left tackle, and it kind of gave them some. I don't know. It certainly changed his outlook and changed his confidence level, and then they all kind of got healthy a little bit, right? And but losing Ryan, I think last week, I go back to the Keith Kirkwood touchdown. Man, Derek Carr was back there. I mean, he was clean. That was great.
He was clean.
That was a clean pocket, and they had a great game. And I was like, because being without Ryan is tough when you got Kayvon Thibodeau over there and you got Aaron Donald. I mean, they'll find ways. So I've been very impressed with this offensive line and how they've been run blocking. Not huge numbers, but if Alvin's he's going to get 100. He's going to get 50, 60 running and 50, 60 catching the ball. And I look at that Giant game and the Taysom Hill effect was really negligible, right? And so I'm hoping that he can have a better game. But I agree. Getting Olave back just makes Shaheed better, and A.T. Perry gets more confidence, and even Lynn Bowden. Lynn Bowden to me has been a find and a guy that was he was a high draft pick, got cut in his very first camp, kind of injured, and so these guys are hungry, right? Lynn Bowden is hungry. Keith Kirkwood is hungry, and Jimmy Graham is hungry, and you can see it out there, and it makes a big difference.
It's been nice to see Lynn Bowden kind of develop. First, he was just a dude when he went on the field. He was going out to the block, right. And now suddenly he's a guy who can catch some passes and do some damage for you there. Defensively, in the secondary, they've been without Marshawn Lattimore for quite some time now, but Isaac Yedem has really played well. I thought he would, even though he had the rocky game, Green Bay. but he really has stepped up when he's needed to these last several weeks. Just how has he paired well with Paulson Adebo? Because the way the Saints play defense, they have to have two corners that can play man-to-man.
They've both played, I think, unbelievable man-to-man in the last few weeks. I mean, if it's a sideline route, they are squeezing, so there's no room. Yedem, to me, it's hard to believe this is his sixth team in 6 years. Like, how? What are we? What are we missing here, right? And I think that Green Bay game, man, you talk about being on an island. Yeah. That was an island, dude. Yeah. You had like 3 PDs in that game, only because they threw it at you 50 times.
Yeah.
But I think since then, it kind of, in a weird way, I think helped his confidence. And now, 13, PDs, got the pick. And I just feel like, the coverage has been so solid. And Deuce says it all the time. If both Isaac and Paulson turn their head a little bit sooner, those PDs are picks.
Yeah.
Because they're getting hands on it. It's not like the receivers are dropping it. It is, they are knocking it down ahead of time. And you're right that, to be without Marshawn and Marcus, right, and to have those guys step up at corner, it's been unbelievable.
All right. Well, Mike, I think that's pretty much got us covered here for Saints and Rams preview, and hopefully the Saints can go 1-0 for this third consecutive week, which is what they're looking to do. Stack those wins, hopefully get to 8-7, and look in the playoffs dead in the eye if they can get to 8-7, because everything still is in their hands, but really, really will be more in their hands if they can get to 8-7, because then you got Tampa Bay and you got Atlanta finish off. You win those 2 games, you win the division, obviously, because you beat them head to head, and
you won your last 5 games,
and
right?
you got 5 games, so you go into the playoffs. But let's not get ahead of ourselves.
That's right. Stack.
Just stack
the success.
Stack them.
Stack the wins.
Stack them. Well, appreciate it, Mike. Thank you for your time. And we will be looking forward to seeing you and hearing you in the game in the booth.
You bet. Thanks, man.
All right, thanks.
Thanks for listening to the New Orleans Saints podcast. Join us 3 times per week on NewOrleansSaints.com, the Saints mobile app, or you can download the podcast on iTunes. We'll see you next time, right here on the New Orleans Saints podcast.